Well, let's get a perspective on this from Kani Ghulam. He's a director of the American Kurdish Information Network, and he joins us from Washington, D.C.
Since last summer, basically, since the beginning of last fall, in a number of cities, curfews have been imposed lasting 2 weeks, 3 weeks. During that time, people cannot step out. And then there's bombing going on suspected sites. And if people get injured, then they cannot get to the hospital. Water is cut off, electricity is cut off. It's an undeclared war that Turkey is waging on its Kurdish civilian population in cities throughout the southeast of the country.
What are the main threats for the Kurdish civilians?
Curfews are imposed on the towns 24 hours a day. People cannot step out. Then there's no water and there's no electricity. Water is cut off, electricity is cut off. The whole thing goes back to June 7 elections when Kurds got 13% of the vote. 80 deputies in the parliament denied the president of Turkey absolute rule that he was seeking or hoping to get through 400 deputies in his party. Then he called for a repeat elections and then began a campaign of intimidation against the Kurds as well as other people who didn't vote for him. And then the Kurds have been, clamoring for more rights. There's not even a Kurdish preschool in Turkey. You have a population, 20 million people living in the country with no basic human rights, with no political rights, and forced to be assimilated into the Turkish culture, Turkish language, Turkish literature. And the Kurds are basically saying, we have had enough. We want to have our own local autonomy, local rule. And the government of Turkey is refusing to accommodate that. And you have the war that's in our hands now.
Would you classify this as ethnic cleansing?
I would classify it as cultural genocide. I would classify it as ethnic cleansing in the sense that the people are not allowed to express themselves. They're forced to be assimilated into the Turkish culture. I think it's against the international law and as well as international norms. Countries that are subjugated by others have basic rights, but Turkey is denying the very existence of the Kurds in its constitution and is forcing them to, be assimilated, and the Kurds are fighting back. And you have this fight as we speak of.
Do you feel that the number of civilian casualties will continue to grow?
The government of Turkey on December 14 sent text message to 3,000 teachers in Şırnak province, the hotbed of Kurdish activism, if you will. These were Turkish teachers who were teaching there, and the government basically said, you need to leave, and then sent 10,000 soldiers, special forces, as well as additional 5,000 that it said it would send. And then it told the hospital staff to stock up on their supplies, and the curfew began on December 14. Today is December 23, so it's been 9 days. Very limited access in terms of news. In Cizre, for example, 2 neighborhoods have entirely been evacuated. People have been forced to go to a football stadium, and the government is doing house-to-house search, supposedly looking for Kurdish partisans. The situation is dire. You have civilians being killed. There was a story of an 11-year-old girl in September who was killed, and then for 5 days her parents couldn't bury her because there was a curfew. They couldn't leave her. The mother, she was afraid that the body would decompose, so she kept the body of her daughter in a freezer, in the house freezer. And then on the 14th, when the curfew was over, then she honored her with a burial.
It's a very troubling and horrifying story, not only for the people around, but especially for the mother. Is there anybody that's able to get in there, like independent observers or journalists that can document the situation in order to bring awareness to what's happening?
There was a journalist there from Netherlands, Frederik Gerdnik. As soon as these hostilities began, as soon as the government of Turkey basically started this campaign of intimidation and assault, they made her a persona non grata, and they bought tickets for her and sent her back to the Netherlands. As far as I know, there are no independent foreigner observers there. The government twice had a couple of reporters, but then they were arrested. Local journalists are trying to do their best, but often they're imprisoned. They're not allowed to, conduct their work. The other frightening thing about this whole assault is government of Turkey, many people feel now, has come up with this group called the Alliance of God, and they are basically, once the curfew is imposed, they go into the house-to-house search, and then they brag about their origins, if you will, and then they write on the graffiti on the wall things like, be proud you're a Turk. If you're not, then you need to worship the Turks. Or the blood has touched the tooth of the wolf and be afraid. So that's the graffiti that's on the walls as we speak. The fear is that what's happening in Syria could easily duplicate in Turkey. The fault lines are identical in a way. There's a Sunni majority in Turkey that wants to impose its will not just on the Kurds but also on the Alawites. And in Syria, it's the Alawite minority and then the Kurds and then the Sunni majority. So Turkey could easily become like Syria too, basically what I'm trying to say.
It's a very scary prospect. Do you feel that there's any chance that the Turkish government could launch a thorough investigation into what's happening in the region, or is this state sanctioned?
You know, Turks will never investigate their own abuses. They never have, they never will.